You heard one of the attendees make mention of the president signing a number of executive orders. A number of those executive orders signed today by the now president, among them one that will direct the military to the southern border and end birthright citizenship. My next guest who's joining me is not a fan of that. I'm referring to Mr. Steve Maggi. He's a lawyer and former immigrant and naturalized U.S. citizen. Good to see you, sir, and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Guy. Great to be with you.
And so I'm curious. Obviously, this is a big deal for the president. We saw him moments ago inside of the Oval Office actually signing that executive order. Your take on what the president has really put top of mind for so many Americans?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting contrast to see all the people celebrating at the ball and talking about fashions and having, these country performers that really represent the pulse of the U.S. I think President Trump, a guy from Queens, New York, has really put his finger on the pulse of America. And I think America has voted in great support of bringing in extensive measures for immigration, including what he did today was a declaration of national emergency at the border, which is going to allow him to put a lot of the resources that the U.S. government has in place to start deploying troops, to making the border stronger, to eventually closing the border and building the wall, enforcing immigration measures like deportation. A lot of people are celebrating today, and there are 13 million people or more that are really scared now, more scared than they've ever been because of the emergency declaration and the executive orders that are going into effect.
We also know that the president, in essence, has signed an executive order that now treats drug cartels, if you will, as foreign terrorists.
Yeah, and I think that what that does is it expands the powers of the U.S. government to deport those individuals immediately, as opposed to having each one of them go through their own separate process of deportation where they could find remedies or try to find remedies to remain in the U.S. It brings them to a point where they're no longer untouchable, and it allows the U.S. government more freedom to be able to prosecute very quickly and to remove those individuals.
There's also been word that the president will now focus on a number of illegal immigrants, specifically starting with the city of Chicago, where they will be rounded up, if you will, and deported out of the country. Your take on that, sir?
It's very scary to think about it. He talks about mass deportations. What that should mean for people who are who are in the U.S. but have still legal rights of due process is that they should be processed individually. But when he says he's going to start rounding up entire groups, the problem is that there are individuals that may have status or that may have family members that are U.S. citizens or that may be in the process of asylum, for example, or some sort of individual hearing. And you can't breach their rights by rounding up thousands of people and just moving them out of the United States. Those individuals, according to the law that we have in place now, are afforded the right of due process or their day in court. And so that could be very problematic. There's a big distinction between targeting criminals and prosecuting them or removing them from the U.S. if they are part of drug cartels or they're deemed as terrorists, and just mass removal of people who are really due their due process and their day in court. There's a big distinction there, and it's really frightening to think that he could just round up thousands of people at one time.
Well, Steve, we truly appreciate your time yet again, Mr. Steve Maggi, joining us. Thank you so much for coming on the show this evening.
Thank you.